Vanessa stood at the top of the grand marble staircase, her suitcase a heavy anchor in her trembling hand. Below, her husband, Marcus, leaned close to his new girlfriend, whispering words Vanessa couldn't hear but felt like knives. The girlfriend, her former yoga instructor of all people, giggled softly, oblivious to the weight of the moment. On the couch, Marcus's mother, Diane, sipped her white wine with the casual indifference of a woman who'd already dismissed Vanessa years ago. No one looked up. 10 years in this house. 10 years of laughter, tears, and silent compromises. And this was how it ended. A cold, unspoken eviction. Side glances that cut deeper than words. A forced Uber ride to nowhere. Marcus didn't even offer to carry her bags. "You'll land on your feet," he said, his voice flat, devoid of the warmth that once drew her to him. "This life just isn't for you." The words landed like a slap, but Vanessa didn't flinch. She nodded once, her throat tight with unshed tears, and turned away from the mansion that had never truly been her home. Each step echoed in the vast foyer, a final goodbye to a life she tried so hard to fit into outside. The sky unleashed its fury. Rain fell in heavy, relentless sheets, soaking her within seconds. Her Uber was late. Her phone was dead, its blank screen a mirror to the emptiness in her chest. Her heart felt like it had shattered into fragments too small to piece back together. The cold wind sliced through her thin jacket, chilling her to the bone. Yet, as she stood in the driveway, suitcase at her feet, something unfamiliar stirred within her, a faint pulse of relief. For the first time in years, she wasn't pretending. She didn't have to shrink herself to fit into a family that resented her existence. The rain washed away the weight of their judgment, and in its place, she felt the first whisper of freedom. Vanessa hadn't always been this woman. Quiet, accommodating, invisible. Back in South Dallas, she'd been raised by her grandmother, Miss Loretta, a force of nature who owned blocks of property during the 1970s housing boom, a rare feat for a black woman in those days. Miss Loretta taught Vanessa how to move through the world with cunning and grace, how to spot undervalued land, how to shield her name from public records, how to carry wealth without flaunting it. When Miss Loretta passed, she left Vanessa more than property and shares in 3 banks. She left a sealed letter with a single instruction: "Don't open this until they show you who they are." Vanessa opened it 2 years into her marriage, after Diane's venomous words, just a charity case Marcus picked up, cut through her like glass. That night, alone in the guest room, Vanessa read her grandmother's words and wept. She quietly transferred everything, properties, shares, assets, into a shell company under her middle name, Renee. She never told Marcus about her inheritance. She wanted love that wasn't tied to money, a love that saw her for who she was, not what she could offer. So she drove a beat-up Toyota, wore dresses from the clearance rack, and offered to split the bill even when Marcus waved her off. But the Harrisons, Marcus, Diane, his sisters, saw her humility as weakness. They mocked her relentlessly, their words sharp and deliberate, meant to sting. "No ambition, no style, no pedigree." They whispered it behind her back, but loud enough for her to hear. Vanessa absorbed it all, her silence not a sign of defeat, but a shield. She was watching, waiting, knowing the day would come when their masks would fall. And when it did, she'd be ready. After leaving the mansion, Vanessa checked into a modest motel on the city's edge. Not because she couldn't afford better, but because she craved silence to think, to feel, to rebuild. The room smelled of stale coffee and bleach, but it was hers. Alone with Miss Loretta's old notebooks, she traced her grandmother's handwriting, each page a reminder of the strength she'd buried to survive her marriage. She studied market trends, made calls under her middle name, and moved with precision. Within weeks, she closed on 4 commercial properties in Atlanta, acquired 2 beauty brands through private investors, and bought out a failing luxury fashion label once owned by a rival family to the Harrisons. She wasn't driven by anger. She was fueled by focus, and that made her unstoppable. Meanwhile, Marcus was unraveling. His new girlfriend's appetite for luxury outpaced his bank account. She pushed him to refinance the mansion for lavish trips and designer clothes, a lifestyle they couldn't sustain. Diane, ever the enabler, co-signed a new mortgage without reading the fine print. By the time they realized the balloon payment had doubled, the family's restaurant business was hemorrhaging money, and the mansion, Vanessa's former prison, was headed to auction. Marcus tried to reach her through mutual friends, but Vanessa had blocked every number the day she left. She didn't need his apologies. She was done with his voice point 3 months to the day after her exile. Vanessa returned. Not to the mansion's front door, but to the back of the auction hall where it was listed. She wore a satin emerald green jumpsuit that hugged her curves, her hair swept into a sleek bun, gold earrings catching the light with every step. Her skin glowed with a confidence she'd rediscovered, her walk a quiet command that silenced the room. No one recognized her at first. Then she raised the bid by $500,000 in one smooth motion, her voice steady, her gaze unyielding. Marcus's head snapped around. Diane gasped, her wine glass trembling. The girlfriend clutched Marcus's arm, whispering, "Wait, she's rich." Vanessa didn't acknowledge them. She stared straight ahead, her face calm, unreadable. The room fell silent. Bidders dropped out, unwilling to challenge the woman who radiated such quiet power. Within minutes, Vanessa won the auction with a cash offer, no negotiations needed. When the auctioneer asked for a name for the paperwork, she said simply, "Vanessa Renee Johnson." Marcus's eyes widened. Diane's face drained of color. Vanessa signed the papers, nodded once, and turned to leave. No speeches, no gloating. She'd already said goodbye to that house once. This time, she was claiming the silence it owed her. But Vanessa didn't move back in. Instead, she called Latrice, a single mother she'd met at a shelter, a woman who'd lost her apartment after a crooked landlord vanished with a rent. Vanessa handed her the keys to the mansion and said, "This place needs joy. Make it yours." Latrice's eyes filled with tears as her 3 children squealed. Racing through the halls, Vanessa once cleaned in silence. Standing on the porch, Vanessa looked up at the windows that had held her tears for years. A soft smile curved her lips. "It's not home if you're not wanted," she whispered to herself, then walked away, the sound of laughter fading behind her. Words spread like wildfire. She bought it in cash. She gave it away. That girl was holding out. The Harrisons became a punchline in hushed circles, their once proud name tarnished by their own arrogance. Marcus tried to spin it as betrayal. "She tricked us." But no one bought it. Vanessa didn't flaunt her wealth. She lived it quietly, discreetly. She moved into a penthouse overlooking the city, its skyline a reminder of how far she'd come. Her mornings began with yoga on her balcony, the wind kissing her skin as she stretched, no longer judged for her lack of Lululemon. She journaled daily, her pen gliding across the page. "I'm no longer pretending to be small. I'm in the room." Marcus, meanwhile, was drowning. His girlfriend left when the money dried up, unwilling to stay with a man who couldn't keep up with her demands. Diane sold the family's vacation home to cover debts. The restaurant shuttered after a failed health inspection. Gossip swirled that Vanessa had orchestrated their downfall, but she hadn't. She'd simply let their choices catch up with them. Her silence was louder than any revenge. One Sunday, Vanessa visited Miss Loretta's grave, a bouquet of hydrangeas in her arms. She wore a simple white dress, the fabric soft against her skin. Kneeling, she whispered, "You were right. They showed me exactly who they were." She lingered, memories of her grandmother's lessons flooding back. How to buy land across state lines, how to spot red flags in people, how to distinguish quiet strength from passive silence. Don't confuse peace with permission, Miss Loretta used to say. Vanessa had learned that lesson the hard way, but it had saved her tea at a modest cafe. Sipping tea, a young woman approached her, eyes wide with recognition. "Was that really your house?" she asked. Vanessa smiled softly. "It used to be." The girl hesitated, then said, "Giving it away like that? That was boss." Vanessa laughed, a sound light and free. "I didn't give it away," she said. "I freed it." That small exchange stayed with the girl, inspiring her to leave an abusive relationship and start new. Vanessa's quiet power rippled outward, touching lives she'd never know. Her days grew bolder, yet calmer. She acquired luxury properties under LLCs, each purchase a brick in the legacy she was building. Bitterness never drove her, clarity did. She hired a personal chef, not because she couldn't cook, but because she finally believed she deserved rest. She invested in art, tech, and herself, her mornings filled with gratitude and purpose. One evening, Marcus called, his voice cracking through the line. "I messed up, Vanessa. I didn't know who you were." She let him talk, his words a desperate plea for forgiveness, for absolution. When he finished, her voice was steady. "That was the problem. I did." She hung up. No tears, no anger, just closure down on her penthouse balcony. Vanessa watched the city glow beneath her. She thought of the years she'd dimmed her light, apologizing for existing too boldly. Never again. She wasn't bitter, just awake, awake to her worth, her power, her story. She didn't need applause. She was her own standing ovation. Months later, she ran into Latrice at a bookstore, both reaching for a Maya Angelou memoir. They laughed, hugged, and sat for coffee. Latrice shared how she'd started a daycare in a mansion, her kids thriving in a home filled with love. "That house changed everything," she said, eyes shining. Vanessa smiled. "No, you did." It was a full circle moment. Two women who'd once felt invisible, now standing tall in their purpose. That Vanessa's life became a quiet revolution. She bought properties and turned them into sanctuaries for women rebuilding their lives. No fanfare, no website, just a woman with means and a mission. She stayed grounded, shopping at corner stores, calling her best friend every Sunday, whispering thank you each morning. Her power wasn't just in her wealth. It was in her grace, her restraint, the way she walked away from flames without setting anything ablaze. The Harrisons thought they'd ended her story when they pushed her out, but they'd only given her the silence she needed to write a masterpiece. Vanessa wasn't just surviving. She was rewriting what it meant to thrive.